I firmly believe this, that there's never been a better time to be in your own business. That said, it's also one of the most confusing times, with everything changing so quickly, all the technology, and everything moving at such a rapid pace. It's become more difficult than ever, I believe, to try to keep up with it and market your business. I think the other point that's very important is that even though there are many technological advances that are affecting the marketing landscape, there are some basic marketing principles that, for the most part, will never change. You still have to get prospects excited about your product or service. So this evening we're going to cover some of the important basics about marketing that really are true no matter what you do. And we're also going to get into some of the more sophisticated nuances, technical nuances of marketing that may be a little bit confusing. So this represents the past. I live in a 10-story apartment building, and for the past 2 months I've taken the elevator down to the lobby of my building and seen a stack of Yellow Pages that has not moved in the past 2 months. If that's not a sign of the times, I don't know what is. Out of curiosity, I called the Yellow Pages because obviously people are still spending money on advertising the Yellow Pages. Does anyone want to guess what the rate for a half-page color ad in Yellow Pages in Fairfield County? This is a half-page color ad, Fairfield County, for 1 year, for the year that, that changes every year. $750. Do I hear 1,000? Do I hear 2,000? Do I hear 5,000? Okay, the non-discounted rate that I was quoted was $35,000. $35,000. It makes me wonder about the people that are advertising in that Yellow Pages. So this represents the past. I would venture a guess that in 2 or 3 more years, I'm not going to see any Yellow Pages stacked up by my mailboxes. What I probably will see more of are these things. So for anyone who doesn't know what these things do, it's kind of like a barcode, where with your smartphone, if you see this on an ad, or you can actually tattoo one of these on your body if you want to. And I'm told it works. I haven't tried it, but I'm told it works. And you put your cell phone up there and you scan it, and it will take you to whatever web page you want it to. And these things are becoming more and more popular, and they're really, really very easy to create. If you want a QR code for anything, all you have to do is Google a QR code converter, and they'll take you to a website, and for free, you just plug in whatever web page you want to go to and press a button, and out will pop one of these things that you could put wherever you want. It's that easy. So back to the past here. Just out of curiosity, I posted a poll on LinkedIn to ask when was the last time you used the Yellow Pages, and that long orange bar is last century. And that was 59%. Now, I've researched this, and I've heard that this is actually conservative. So again, this kind of goes back to my point about it's important to keep up with the evolving landscape and pay attention. It's up to you whether or not you want to spend on a half-page Yellow Pages ad. If it were me, I would spend my money other places. As a business owner, one thing I've learned, and I've been doing this since the mid-'80s, you can't be good at everything. And you've got to be able to focus your time and your energy on what it is that makes you the great entrepreneur you are. And that's why you have to bring in people from the outside that are expert at these areas. So you don't have to keep up. That's really not your job, because it's a full-time job for me. I'm trying to keep up, and this is my business. the better you are at marketing your business and attracting people, the less you have to chase after and give away free stuff. And that's what we're going to be covering tonight. And there are 5 key areas that we're going to be talking about tonight that you have to do well if you want to be successful at marketing. It starts with identity. I'm going to be talking a lot tonight about Apple because not only am I a big fan of Apple, but I think there's probably no better example of a successful company in the world. And at one time, Apple was the size of you guys. It just wasn't Apple overnight. It started out with a dream. And it started out with identity of what Steve Jobs wanted Apple to be. So here are some other examples that you see of some very successful companies. So your business identity involves what your product and service is, how you want to present that to your target audience, what's on your business card when you hand someone a business card. There's something else called a tagline, which I'm going to get into, which helps identify what your business is. So when I started my business, I had to figure out who I was. And I thought about it, and it's very difficult sometimes to figure out what your brand essence is. And I had this visual of these crazy eyes lying around, and I realized that for the past, at that point, 10 years of my career, my job was to work on assignments to help people get excited about whatever product or service I was working on. It wasn't merely to inform people, because you're not going to make a sale just by informing people. You have to inform them, and you have to excite them. Because if you don't touch them on that emotional level, that information is just going to go in one ear and out the other, or maybe not even that. So it's really about exciting people. So this became my logo. And I want to tell you an interesting story about this business card. When I was networking a few years ago, I found myself in the elevator with a business owner, woman owned a PR company, who was the incoming president for an organization that I was a member of called Women in Communications. I was one of the few guys, but I thought I would give it a shot. And I went every month for 12 months and didn't really feel like I was getting a whole lot out of it. I felt a little bit like a wedding crasher after about the 3rd month. The novelty kind of wore off. So I'm in the elevator on the way down from this building of the last meeting that I said I was going to attend. And in walks this incoming president, and I figured this is my last opportunity to network. So I introduced myself to her. She had just given a wonderful presentation. I complimented her. After which she asked, well, what do you do? Or, who are you? I don't think she assumed that I was a member of Women in Communications, which I said I was. And then she said, what's your business? I said, my business is to get my clients, prospects, excited. After which I just handed her my business card. She was intrigued. She looked at this and she said, this may be the first time someone has told me what their business is and then handed me a business card that actually was tied in to what they said. This is one of the most interesting business cards I've ever seen. She was clearly intrigued because she kept looking at it, and on the back of it, I think I had a line that said, if you want to get people excited about your product, you have to get them excited about your marketing. So it was, again, that excited theme. She suggested that we have lunch, and 3 months later, I signed a contract for a $98,000 project. It was probably a 2.5-month project. So I'm not saying it's because of those eyes, but I don't think that hurt. Now, I come across a lot of small business owners that try to do their own logos and own branding. This was one of them. I don't know if you can read the copy underneath it, but it's a tutoring company. And the owner decided that he was going to try to do it himself, and he named the company Learning Core, and it's got this cartoon apple with a happy face on it. And when we met and had a discussion, I do something called marketing therapy. My business is marketing therapy. And that involves one-on-one consulting with business owners to try to help them wherever they need it. So he asked me if I thought his logo and name and branding could be better, and I said definitely. So this is what we ended up coming up with. We changed the name, we redesigned the logo, and we also gave it a tagline: the faster, better way to learn. I call this my logo facelift because anyone in business now has a logo. It doesn't mean they have a good logo or an effective logo. So when I come across a lot of business owners, I mean, this is probably as drastic as I've done in changing the logo, but he realized that he needed a major, major overhaul, including a name change. So he was very open to this, and he was very happy about it. Here are some examples of some other logo facelifts. And I even gave myself a facelift in the lower left-hand corner. That was my first marketing therapy logo. And I decided that a couch would be a nice visual. So one other client that I worked with that had some identity problems was a Montessori school. They're called the Cobb School. And they realized that they needed to do a better job of branding their business. And one of the things that I thought would help distinguish them from their competition to give them a stronger brand and company identity was a tagline. Because out of the tagline, I thought we might be able to build a branding campaign to better distinguish them from the competition. So I wanted to give them a lot to choose from, and they cover different areas where kids love to learn, the best education your kid can get, the foundation for life. Does anyone want to guess which one they chose? I was surprised because it's very non-institutional. Then again, they're a Montessori school, so they do think outside of the box. So it seemed like a perfect thing. And I have to say, before I did any work for them, like I do with any client, I got to live and breathe what this client is about, what their issues are. And it became pretty clear to me that one of the problems they had was that some people knew what Montessori was, some people didn't. But the problem was that a lot of people weren't sure that the stronger education that they might get from Montessori was worth the extra money that they had to pay, especially in this economy. So it became a question of convincing them that it's not just a top quality school, but yes, it's worth it. So one of the ways that we did that was interview a number of the parents on video and get them to share their feelings about the Cobb School. And they said some incredible things. We interviewed each one for about 15 minutes. And out of each 15-minute interview, we edited it down to about anywhere from 40 seconds to a minute, minute 10, minute 20, really short sound bites.
Well, I think people ask me that a lot, and I always tell them, please just come and see what we do here. See what's going on here, because I think if you see what's going on here, you really would, most people want it for their children. Because it's very hard to explain unless you see how the children are acting, and I've seen it with my oldest daughter who graduated and has gone on to other schools, what it's done for her in those other schools.
Right.
The thing that sold me was the idea of teaching the passion of learning, because that's what you take through life. No matter where you are, no matter what environment you're in, if you have been taught the inherent passion to want to learn and that curiosity, that's priceless.
It's going to make them a centered, kind, caring person.
Right.
Which will prepare them for everything.
Yeah, I think it prepares them for life.
And then after getting the parents to talk on camera, we decided why not get a few of the children who had gone to the Cobb School when they were very young and are now going to school in Ivy League schools, very successful. So certainly a logo and a tagline is important for your identity, but probably what's most important is what your brand is, what you stand for. And I would like to read something that talks about the power of a strong brand. This was an article that was written earlier this year in Forbes magazine, and the title of the article is Why Apple Will Do Perfectly Well Without Steve Jobs. And it talks about the power of a strong brand, and something to keep in mind when you think about your own brand. In 2006, Apple launched a branding campaign called Get a Mac. You may know it also as Mac versus PC. In this effort, it was proven that the Apple brand was so sure of its voice and personality, it could go out and do a casting call for it. When casting for the campaign, the Apple team knew just what kind of person would represent Mac and the Mac user. It had to be a person who showed openness to new ideas and new ways of doing things, people who thought differently. Most organizations have a set of brand guidelines for tone and manner and color and typeface. It all helps, but unless everyone in the organization can live what makes up the essence of its brand and deliver on it brilliantly in the marketplace, chances are the brand will have a difficult time helping consumers get a sense of who they're dealing with. So Steve Jobs not only created a strong vision for the company, he instilled his vision into the culture of the company. The passion for the perfect marriage of design and functionality, the passion for ensuring perfection in everything Apple does. As long as Apple carries on and continues to live the brand as Steve Jobs lived it, I don't think Apple enthusiasts will have anything to worry about. So that kind of sums up what a brand is and what you have to start thinking about for your identity. There are certain words that describe every company, in this case Apple: innovative, technologically cutting edge, industry leader, user-friendly, cool might be some of the adjectives to use to describe Apple. If you were 1-800-Flowers, you might say convenient, fast, great variety. If you were New York Times, your identity might be believable, comprehensive, prestigious, and respected. So those are some of the brand attributes that describe the New York Times. Tom Peters said this 15 years ago. You have to be your own brand regardless of age, position, or the business you're in. And the first step is visibility. A personal brand is crucial to professional survival no matter what your field. And here's another one. The reality is the world has shifted immensely, and you can't afford not to think digitally. The goal today is to be searchable. So you can't just have a strong brand, you've got to be able to be found. Because 86%, and this is as of 2009, 86% of recruiters use the internet to learn about their candidates. Now it's up to about 95%. It's just the way the world is going. I came up with a name for it. I call it G-Cred. Google credibility. In essence, this is what it means. And we're going to talk a little bit more about web content when we talk about technology and exactly what that means and how you create it. But that's what you need to create your credibility. The Wall Street Journal, in May of 2007, wrote an article entitled, "You're Nobody Unless Your Name Googles Well." That was back in 2007. They said, in the age of Google, being special increasingly requires standing out from the crowd online. I came up with G-Cred in 2005, so I guess we're on the same page about that. So that covers the first basis, your business identity and your brand. The next thing you got to focus on is your business strategy. What do you do once you figure out who you are? Who's my client? What's my product benefit? How do I reach my client? What message is going to touch my client? What delivery channels? What makes them special? So you have to come up with a strategy. What would you say Geico's marketing strategy is? This is what I thought. Save you money and it's easy. For the Cobb School, it's the best and it's worth it. So a brand strategy, though it may look like a tagline, is really what the goal of your marketing should be, what it is you want to communicate. Sometimes they're very similar because the tagline often is a way to, in simple language, capture the brand and the benefit of the product or service that you're using. But again, when you're thinking about your marketing strategy, don't try to be clever with it. Just figure out what it is that you need to do with your business, what it is that you need to accomplish. So with the Cobb School, we also had to communicate that they were the best, because it's worth it means nothing unless you automatically know that they're the best. And some people knew that Montessori, just because it was Montessori, was a higher level of private school. What they didn't know was something I found out after spending a day with the founder of the school, and I asked her if there were any super successful or famous people that were Montessori educated. And out of that, she told me a few names, and out of that I designed a direct mail piece that says, with a Montessori education, your child will be in some very good company. And when you open it up, accordion style, this is what you see. The last piece said, the Cobb School Montessori is the best education your child can get. To learn about our programs and admission policy, call us. And then the name, and yeah, it's worth it. So that was how I executed the idea of it's the best and it's worth it in a direct mail piece. That was very, very effective. So we covered identity, we covered strategy. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is something I know you're all struggling with, and that's technology. So when we talk about technology, this is where all the focus seems to be, or certainly a lot of it. That's Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. So I could give an entire seminar just on this, but I will give you kind of the key points of these things. And one that's been very popular lately is with Facebook, and that's the like button. This is becoming the new tool to get your message out via social media to all your friends and pretend friends on Facebook, because quite honestly, many of them, if not most of the people that I talk to, don't even know half the people that they have as friends on Facebook. But this will enable you to, if you are interested in what the people who are in your Facebook network are looking at and doing, this will be one way of driving traffic and your attention to what they're doing. Now, this doesn't just have to be within Facebook. The cool thing about this, and this is why it's kind of really exploding, you may have noticed that this like button is on some non-Facebook pages now. Anyone can use this like button. Ultimately, it will alert your people within Facebook. So that's the website that it's going to drive people to. But with a little bit of coding, which looks like that, you can copy and paste that and put that on any website that you have, or any page on any website, and you will have a like button that people can like. So it certainly doesn't hurt to have it on it, because if anyone likes anything that they see on that page enough to click that button, then everyone in their Facebook network will see in their news feed that they liked something they saw on your website. It goes into the news feed. It goes into the news feed of everyone who is their friend. Just like when you go to Facebook and you look at you see what everyone is doing, and you'll see that so and so liked my presentation here tonight, and they'll want to check it. Maybe they'll want to check it out. Maybe they won't. But that is what's driving traffic. Companies right now are paying college students lots of money as their social media directors, because this is where the business is going. So we talked about the QR codes. Does anyone have a WordPress site? WordPress, for those of you who don't know it, has started out as the leading program to design your blog on. It came out, I think, probably 2004 or 5, something like that. But it really started gaining a lot of popularity in about 2007, because the benefit of WordPress is that it's very easy. It's very non-techy to use. And the complaint that a lot of people who had websites were having was that any time they needed to have a typo fixed on their website, they had to get on the phone and contact their 20-year-old web person and hope that he wasn't too busy to fix their website. So what started happening was a lot of the technology started evolving to the point, and WordPress was one of the leaders, where they enabled the owner to have more control over that kind of stuff. And quite easily, it started out as a blog format, but over the last couple of years, it started evolving so you can use different templates and basically use the same architecture and design a pretty attractive, custom-looking website. It's called a CMS, which is Content Management System, I think, which again allows the owners to manage their own content, which at this point in the game you have to do. You have to be in control of your own website. You can't be held hostage. I still talk to people. They have websites that were designed a few years ago, and now, like a lot of things in this quickly changing world, need to upgrade and have the ability to control their own website. There probably is nothing more important to represent your business than your website. I think it's also important to get involved in YouTube. It's so easy to make videos these days. People are 8 more times likely to click on a video than they are to read text. So if that's the case and you want to communicate with people, you've got to start putting up some video content. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be produced by Spielberg. It just has to be something that professionally communicates what you do. You can no longer not get involved with that. Again, this is a very rich subject. I didn't talk about anything about SEO, search engine optimization. It's very important to be findable, and what SEO is it employs whatever keywords people will be searching for and incorporating them in your website, so you make your website more searchable. So I'm going to move on to the fourth thing. We talked about identity, strategy, technology, and creativity. And again, I'm going to go to my favorite company, Apple, and talk about some of the great stuff that they've done over the years. And I'm sure you're familiar, we talked about it earlier, the Mac versus PC campaign. Not only was this a wonderful strategy, but it was very creatively done. They're brilliant, they're so smart, and they've been very, very effective. And prior to that, they had this campaign which was called Think Different. That campaign came out when Steve Jobs had returned to Apple and felt that there was a need to reestablish what the brand stood for. So he was working with an ad agency and had them come up with this campaign. Now, you don't have to be Apple with millions of dollars to spend on advertising to be creative. One of my clients, actually for 13 years now, is a church in Manhattan. And in 1998, when they came to me and said, our target market is people in their 20s, and we'd really like to make church cool again, what would you do? So I came up with a series of ads that had a little bit of irreverent wit to them. And I never thought they were going to actually run these ads, but they decided to run them. There was a whole series of them. This one features all the programs and activities that they have. This has been running on the subways in New York. Another one we did was a mobile billboard. And we actually did an airplane banner. I thought this headline worked pretty well as an airplane banner. It says, "Make a friend in a very high place." And then it has the church website. And this was flying over the Hamptons on Labor Day weekend. So you look up and you see banners for suntan lotion and beer and radio stations, and then you see a church, "Make a friend in a high place." So that helped us generate some press. This is some of the press that we've gotten over the years. New York Times. The bottom one is Time Magazine. And that was Adweek. And it was very successful. I guess the litmus test of success is if they keep hiring you year after year. And this November will be the 13th year that we'll be doing advertising for them. As I said, it also applies to smaller businesses. You could be creative, as I tried to be with my business card. So in every aspect of your business, whenever you can be creative and stand out from the crowd, the most important thing when you're in business is you've got to distinguish yourself from everyone else out there. You've got to make people pay attention and respond. The last thing I want to talk about is you got to be easy. You got to make it easy for people to find you. You got to make it easy for them to know what you do. You make it easy for what your benefit is. You got to make it easy for them to contact you. It kills me when I go on websites and their email address is embedded in, so you can't just click on it and email them. They have it embedded in some graphic or something like that. So we talked about identity, strategy, creativity, making things easy, and I can't give a presentation without talking about honesty. You have to be truthful about your business. Some people think that marketing is about doing whatever you can to get people to buy your product regardless of whether it's truthful. I don't believe that. I think that out of the truth can come some really great ideas. And if you look at any really successful campaign, you look at the Apple campaign, for example, Mac versus PC. It was pretty hard-hitting. I mean, he was saying some tough stuff against PC, but everything he was saying was presented in such a funny way. And it was all true. It was all true. Everything that they said. When they were putting down Vista, and they were saying, "I'm hearing you're having some problems with Vista," that was all true. So everyone knows about the Apple campaign, what they've done. But one of the things I want to talk to you guys about is that, again, you look at this campaign, you say, okay, well, that's Apple, and I'm just trying to get some business. I'm just starting out my business. Well, Apple wasn't always Apple. And you may be familiar with what their campaign was recently, but do you know what they were doing before this? There was a point where they were doing ads like this that you may not remember. And before that, they were doing this for their advertising. So, Apple wasn't always Apple as we know it. A is for Apple. That was their advertising back then. And before that, this was the first Apple ad that was really just something in a technical magazine, I think. I don't know, you can really officially call it an ad. But what's interesting is, do you see that black object on the bottom there? That's the first Apple logo. So, just to show you that there's an evolution in every business. So, everyone had to start someplace, right? And it went from that to that to that. Now, you should also know, and this is very important, the campaign that turned the company around to when Steve Jobs came back on in 1997 was this campaign called Think Different. This is where it's saying in 1997, Apple was just 6 months from bankruptcy. Jobs was busy trying to save the company, mostly by cutting back. He needed to remind people what Apple stood for. He decided that the best way to do it was a new ad campaign. And to do that new campaign, he hired an ad agency. And this is the guy that's behind the Think Different campaign. His name is Ken Siegel. He's from an agency on the West Coast called Shy It Day. And not only did he create the Think Different campaign, but he also came up with the name for this. Everyone thinks that Steve Jobs, the marketing genius, came up with this. Do you know that Steve Jobs hated that name? Do you want to know what Steve Jobs wanted to call it? And the only reason he went with iMac is because someone else had this name. I don't know who, but he finally agreed to go with iMac, and that basically set the tone for all the new Apple products, the iPhone, the iPad, everything Apple does. That's how big an idea that was. And it wasn't created by Steve Jobs. It was created by a marketing guy that he hired. Does anyone know who these guys are? That was a group that no one knew about in the early 60s, really, until this guy came along. And to my point, that behind every smart, creative, talented person, there's someone else behind the scenes to help them get their music out, to get their message out, to get their computers out. There's someone. Brian Epstein is the man who guided the Beatles to megastardom. Without Brian, the Beatles as we know them simply wouldn't have existed. So with that, I will conclude my talk. This is my business. And I will open it up to questions.